Hello, Canada. Welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias Tagai. Well, we got lots going on here today. Tiff Macklin dropped the interest rate. We're going to do a little bit about Carney. Had a guy reach out to me earlier today and tell me all about what happened in Hamilton at the steel plant. I guess he's one of the guys that's there. Nobody wanted to be in the pictures with any of the Liberals, which is so fitting. But again, the media won't tell you that. Of course, we're going to deal with our government's retaliation, the silliest thing ever. They want a war. They want a war because it makes them poll higher, and that's all they care about. They just want power, especially since if another government gets in there with a majority government, they can expose the corruption, especially the Green Slush Fund and a lot of the backdoor dealings that have been gifted through the global affairs and all the rest of that. And then we're going to deal with the Western separation, which is a exploding factor in Canada. Let's just start right off with Mr. Tiff and see. Just going to run a small clip off of this.
We ended 2024 on a solid economic footing.
No, we didn't.
We are now facing a new crisis. Depending on the extent and duration of new U.S. tariffs, the economic impact could be severe. The uncertainty alone is already causing harm. Monetary policy cannot offset the impacts of a trade war. What it can and must do is ensure that higher prices do not lead to ongoing inflation. The focus of the Governing Council will be on assessing the timing and strength of both the downward pressure on inflation from a weaker economy and the upward pressure from higher costs. As always, the bank will be guided by our monetary policy framework and our commitment to maintain price stability over time. And with that,
Yeah, so 2.75%. We'll see what happens. I don't know if it's good or bad, to be honest, depending on how Trump ends up coming back after our government decides to start fighting. And like I said in a previous video, it's like riding a tricycle against a freight train. It's absolutely crazy. Here's a little clip that I found of Lutnick kind of talking about what went down with Dougie. Dougie!
You're
Great
meeting,
to be here.
You're meeting with the Premier of Ontario tomorrow. What do you want from him?
Oh, I think we're just going to have a nice conversation. It's really, Canada is in a bit of flux, right? Trudeau left, Mark Carney came in. They're probably going to call an election in like 3 weeks. So I think it's just to level set things, make sure we know each other, and then we're going to negotiate with all of Canada. So obviously we're going to wait for there to be a new prime minister, and then we're going to talk.
Are you lowering the temperature?
See, new prime minister. Trump's been getting heck from a whole lot of different podcasters and other people he knows, how he changed the demographics, how Canada was actually en route to having a better government, one that actually deals more in freedom, wants to better our military, wants to fix the 9.5 years of destruction that the Trudeau and his Liberals NDP have caused. And now with this little bit of a rift that's happening, the Liberals are coming up, but don't believe everything you're reading in the polls. The pollsters are full of shit. We know this. There's still going to be a conservative government. It's just we need a major majority in order to expose the corruption. And they know this down there.
Temperature, deliberately?
Well said. We're going to lower the temperature. You know, he thought he'd be sort of the big man and tackle Donald Trump, but you know you can't tackle Donald Trump. He is the most important, the smartest, the most capable leader in the world, and he's not going to let someone push him around. You know, the right answer is, if you take a step back, what does the president want? He wants to worry about major things for national security of America. Steel and aluminum tariffs, that's today, right? Autos coming April 2nd, semiconductors, pharmaceuticals, things that America must have. So you can imagine these are the kind of tariffs we're going to make sure these things come back to America and are built in America. And then on April 2nd, he does his reciprocal tariffs, which basically say to all the countries in the world, come on, you treat us a certain way, we'll treat you the same way. Let's make it fair. You want them high, they'll be high like they are now. You want them low, they'll be low, but let's treat each other fairly. And that's where we're going. Pretty basic, pretty straightforward.
Let's go back to that 25% tariff on all steel and aluminum imports coming into America. What will it take to get those tariffs removed, the 25% steel and aluminum?
So I think the president views steel and aluminum as fundamental for our national security. I mean, we can't be in a war and rely on steel and aluminum from some other country. I mean, it's just not reasonable. So
Yeah, he goes off to kind of blab a little bit and carry on. The idea is that Trump realizes that, especially with what NATO's trying to do and start World War III, is without the ability to be self-reliant and manufacture your own munitions, you're done for. If you have to have a third party, so another country, not only is there a shipping issue on getting it there, but it's a weak point. Anybody who studies any type of war, it doesn't matter, you can go back thousands of years, that's the weakest point. Those who are your enemy will take them out to destroy your chain. Once you can't get any more munitions, the war is over. Trump is light years ahead of everybody. He is galaxies ahead of our government. Our government is still playing with toddler toys. They have no idea. But that's what you get when you get a drama teacher flop out, 86 IQ idiot who gets put into power. Destroyed our nation. Anyways, we're going to move on. This is what our government announced this morning, being the silly, like I said, preschoolers that they are.
Not stand idly by while our iconic steel and aluminum industries are being unfairly targeted. Today, I am announcing that the Government of Canada, following a dollar-for-dollar approach, will be imposing, as of 12:01 a.m. tomorrow, March 13th, 2025, 25% reciprocal tariffs on an additional $29.8 billion of imports from the United States. This includes steel products worth $12.6 billion and aluminum products worth $3 billion, as well as additional imported U.S. goods worth $14.2 billion for a total of $29.8 billion. The list of additional products affected by counter tariffs includes computers, sports equipment, and cast iron products as examples. We will not...
Now, listen to Australia. Now, Japan, South Korea, there's a whole bunch of countries that are doing what these guys are doing. Listen carefully.
The United States' decision to impose tariffs on Australian steel and aluminium as part of a global decision are concerning. It has been foreshadowed that no country, regardless of its relationship with the United States, has been granted an exemption. Such a decision by the Trump administration is entirely unjustified. This is against the spirit of our two nations' enduring friendship and fundamentally at odds with the benefits that our economic partnership has delivered over more than 70 years. Australia has no tariffs on goods from the United States, and of course we have a free trade agreement with the United States. Tariffs and escalating trade tensions are a form of economic self-harm and a recipe for slower growth and higher inflation. They are paid by the consumers. This is why Australia will not be imposing reciprocal tariffs on the United States. Such a course of action would only push up prices for Australian consumers and increase inflation. We will continue to engage constructively with the United States and to make the case for Australian trade and the benefits that it gives to people in the United States of America.
Now, if our government was serious, if we had a real government, they would understand what's going on. They would have a head on their shoulders that not only thinks of peace, but thinks of war. You prepare for both. That's your job. Your job is to protect your nation. Canada has a super advantage. We're part of the same continent. So if anybody in the federal political bubble had any brains, this is my opinion, would you not, especially since we're so far behind? I mean, it sucks being a Canadian knowing that we reneged on promises and signed contracts for so long. We haven't met our NATO targets. But you could use that and say, listen, drop the tariffs off. The money that we make will take X amount off to speed up the process that we can meet our NATO agreement. Because that to Trump is everything. He wants to make sure that our continent becomes the safest place on earth. We are the weakest point. Mexico is stronger than we are. How embarrassing is that? Mexico, ran by cartels, are stronger than we are militarily. It's embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing. So I had a guy reach out to me earlier today, and he works at this Hamilton. Actually, I think he works at the Hamilton. The way he said it sounded like he worked at the Hamilton. It was kind of a short quote. But he had said that he's there. Because he said they were asking people to see if to try and line up the typical people they put in the background. And nobody at that plant wanted to stand beside any of these liberals. Nobody. So he ended up suiting up the rest of the dork squad here, the mod squad, and having them as their props in the background. And like I said earlier, doesn't this guy look like the safety guy that comes up, has no idea what you're doing, but he brings out a book and goes, I think you're doing that wrong. That's what that looks like. Or the green hand, right? Never swung a hammer in his life, lost his job doing something as a lawyer, can't get another job, got disbarred, comes to work. Yeah, that's what this guy, dork, that like total. I'm only going to play just a couple sound bites because he's just so annoying and he lies all the time.
We understand. I respect President Trump's concern for American workers and American families. We respect his concern about fentanyl. It's an issue for us here in Canada as well. And that's why the Canadian government moved very quickly with a comprehensive response that has had a huge impact.
No, it hasn't. Trump knows, especially because a lot of Canadians are telling him the whole 10,000 soldiers, that's all bullshit. That's a lie. Actually, a lot of the, from what I've been reading on the posts that are with these his border control down in the States, they're saying that they're using the helicopter for the helicopter's always over like main ports and areas, and there's always seems to be a camera crew following it around. I think there's only 2 of them that we got. It's embarrassing. They know what's going on. They know it's all a farce, and they know our parliament's closed. They know that they can't really move forward on anything without a functioning parliament in order to pass bills and build this type of infrastructure that we need for it. Everything the liberals are doing right now, everything is gaslighting. It's all lies. They're not doing anything to better Canada. They're only trying to stir the pot because they're seeing in the polls that it's giving them electoral status. They're gonna gain more seats. So they're actually hoping they can squeeze out another minority government. If that happens, I'm telling you, we may very well see provinces leave. And I'm going to get to that in a moment. First, I'm going to lead up to what really pisses Western Canada off. Now, no harm to my Atlantic viewers. Love you guys. Absolutely love you. Every time I'm out there, you guys are just like Saskatchewan Albertans. It's funny how the two sides just are so different than the people in the middle. But I'm using you as an example. China put tariffs on us, 100%. You never hear any talk about that, do you? Nothing. Not a word. Why? Well, if you watch my show, you know, especially with the bombshell Sam Cooper's been bringing out, our government is completely corrupt by the CCP. Now, this is what they put on the news.
Tensions with the U.S. is one of the reasons Hudson's Bay, which is Canada's oldest.
Whoa, what happened there? Nope, sorry, we'll do the, here. Yeah, we'll do that. Sorry, this guy.
The U.S. isn't the only nation hitting Canada with tariffs. China, a big buyer of seafood, has also imposed taxes on several products, among them Nova Scotia lobster. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth is dockside in the Eastern Passage. And Paul, how worried are fishers?
Sandy, there are serious concerns these tariffs could bring a high level of volatility to the seafood industry.
Okay, I totally feel for you. And I'm glad at least you guys are getting talked about with these Chinese tariffs. You got a little soundbite out of it. Now imagine how Western Canada feels. There is zero on the news. The government is not talking at all about the tariffs coming from China, which are actually steeper and harder on our economy than anything Trump's doing right now. It is decimating the West. They are already prepping and planning for mass layoffs. Farmers don't know what they're going to do. It impacts not only the growers, the livestock, it impacts like 75 to 80% of the rural producers in the prairies. Not a word. They're seeing this. They've lived for this for generations. This is why the further west you go, the more CBC, CTV, all of the legacy media is despised, because they go right over. There's years where they didn't even do the weather. It took major complaining. That was about 8 years ago. Major complaining before they actually started taking their time and naming off more than one city. Now they name off 2. Yippee-ki-yay. Yeah, propaganda. And what else? What else goes on that West knows? Stuff like this goes on. And they see it out West. They're not dumb. So 2020, Brookfield invested in an oil pipeline project in Abu Dhabi. In the US $10 billion project, Brookfield, along with the Ontario Teachers Pension Fund, which they pulled out of the Alberta oil investment and put it in Saudi Arabia investment, because they knew they were shutting down the West. This is how ignorant and hateful, spiteful these people are. Alberta, Saskatchewan, and northern BC, and parts of southern Manitoba, they see this. They live with this. Has any journalist asked about this? Has anybody brought this up? No. Crickets. Absolute crickets. And especially now that Carney is the selected prime minister, nobody questioned him about this? The prime minister giving him money, his company money, and taking the pension fund, pulling it out of Canadian stock? So in other words, Canada sucks. We're not going to invest in Canada because you're not going to make any money, but we're going to make money in another country. What kind of government does that? If you haven't even got faith in building your own country's economy, what good are you? This is why you have companies like this.
Company is giving for seeking creditor protection. The move marks an uncertain future for the company, whose roots go back way before the founding of this country.
Hudson
CTV's
Bay.
BC Bureau Chief Andrew Johnson now on what's coming. Andrew, over to you.
Sandy, layoffs and store closures could be what's coming down the pike for the department store chain that dates back all the way to the 17th century.
How depressing this really is. And in the beginning, she blames a little bit. This is what they're using the narrative now, that it's a Trump thing. Trump had nothing to do with this. Nothing to do with this. They can't afford not only the rent. The rent is crazy because the heating and the taxes on it are astronomical. And there isn't enough. People don't have enough money to go out and buy local. Canada is like the Amazon, like Temu champion of the world, because we are living in poverty. 25% of Canadians live in poverty. I just heard a stat here a little bit earlier. I'm going to try and find a clip. I'll put it on tomorrow's episode on how it's like 14.9 million Canadians are homeless. It's like the population of Alberta. Homeless in Canada now. It's gone up by like 60% in the last 7 years. This is your liberal fascist government. And don't forget, propped up by the NDP. They might as well be the same party. What a shame, Hudson's Bay. My guts turn. I can't believe it. I can't afford to shop there. I haven't been able to shop there for the longest time. How? I'm taxed. They take over half my income. And then everything I buy, I'm paying for tax. If you actually work it out, by the time you actually buy and supply everything that you have, you're paying like 70 to 78% tax on your dollar. So really, what are you making? 23% on your dollar? It's a joke. Canada's a joke. It's embarrassing. Now, this is what's taking off. This is only one. 216.8 thousand. I found over 30 of them, different sites. Hell, there's 3 or 4 that are named Wexit. Wexit Movement, Wexit Alberta, Wexit this, Wexit. Like, I lost track at over 500,000 people. And it's endless. I'm sure if I typed in different names, I'd probably find even more. I just gave up. It's like, holy shit, I can't believe how this is exploding. We're gonna lose Western Canada. And if Central Canada, wake up. If you guys vote for the Liberals and they win a minority government or even bigger, they're gone. They're gonna leave. I never thought I'd see it, but I've never been so scared as I am today. But you know what? I totally understand. And guess what? I'll be moving to Alberta. Yeah, I will be. Because there's no way I'm going to stay with the toilet being flushed and Canada being wiped away. There's nothing to stay for. There's nothing to stay for. Our full economy is going to be, there's nothing left. When you got nothing else to carry the back and pay for all of the social programs that these two center provinces, Quebec and Ontario, take from everybody, what's left? Nothing. And I'll be damned if I'm giving them any more of my money. It's not happening. Absolutely not happening. So, Ruby Dhalla, kicked out, trying to get her money back. Total setup in order to get Carney into place. I've been following her. Everything she says, I really appreciate her. She's quite the Canadian. Quite the Canadian. She posted a little clip of where she is today. Did Trudeau ever go down there? No. Not that they'd want to see him anyways, because he's a total embarrassment. And they know it's like talking to a piece of wood. You're not going to get anywhere. Probably break down and cry. This is what she wrote anyways. Busy day in Washington talking tariffs and taxes with senators and members of Congress, standing up for Canadian workers and business in her own country. She said she's there for her own business, but she's definitely there to also push and help Canada any way she can. Way to go, Ruby. Thank you so much for being down there, cool, calm, and collective with an actual brain. Impressive. Absolutely impressive. Now we're going to dabble on something that most people think is a little controversial. I'm going to bring it up again. There is a amazing documentary. It's called Ukraine on Fire. I've said this on many episodes of my show. If you want to know anything about Ukraine, that is the closest thing to reading 700 textbooks of the truth and history of Ukraine, all compiled into an amazing documentary. Oliver Stone. Watch it. If you haven't watched that, please don't open your mouth and talk Ukraine. Just don't. Don't do it. My ancestors are from Ukraine. I know what's going on there. I've been studying Ukraine for decades. Thus, the whole propaganda. This is what got me into it. And we have a leader right now. Well, not a leader. She was running for the leadership. Thank God she didn't win. Who, her dad, her grandpa. Yeah, what she did to my family. And now I've got her in Parliament. Think, people. Think, Canada. Man, unbelievable. Anyways, listen to what she says. And before I do that, because there are people that say, oh, she's a Russian propagandist, I'm going to show you something. This is wiki on her, the bio. Everything about her, she's born in Ukraine, raised in Ukraine, schooled in Ukraine, all of her diplomas, everything's in Ukraine. She's 100% Ukrainian, 100%. And it wasn't until that the whole NATO thing got pushed and they started to destroy and infiltrate the governments to push NATO in to create war that she all of a sudden became a propagandist, because she was speaking truth to power and she was watching journalists and media outlets get shut down by the government. She's a good reporter. Now, she put this out, and this is just another person speaking truth to power. Listen very carefully to what she says.
Today, I ask for your attention. Zelensky took Ukraine hostage. We want freedom. He imprisoned or killed anyone who dared to speak out. We need your help. Thousands of cases have been opened under the charge of treason. The defense carries a life sentence. In fact, it's even worse. I'm sharing a list of people who suffered for the truth. People who emailed me and whose cases we managed to confirm. Those are journalists, priests, politicians. All of them are in prison now on fabricated charges. They are being tortured and beaten. It's just a fraction about whom we managed to find out. I believe in power of free speech. Please share this list. I'll attach it to the video. Save people from dictator Zelensky.
The names go on and on. I'm going to call this the end of the episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And like I said, I'm going to put a link down, and I'll mark underneath there, must watch. It's Ukraine on Fire. I urge any of you who watch this episode, watch that documentary. It is enlightening, and it will open your mind to the truth and reality of what's going on in Ukraine today. Until next time, you've been watching the Canadian Citizen Journal, and I'm alias Tagai. Wow, that's a lot of people.